that this is something that potentially, well, saves us and that financial bottom line. So is it good social result, good economic result, and those kind of solutions we'd like to encourage more of. So we're supporting this bill. Thank you.
I call Chris Hipkins.
Thank you, Mr Chair. I'm happy to take a brief call on the administration of community sentences and orders bill. My colleague Clayton Cosgrove is very excited about the fact that I'm speaking on this bill, but I do want to just begin by placing a caution around the use of official crime statistics, because in my view, 99% of official crime statistics are rubbish, because they're very easily manipulated. They are based on reported crime normally, and there are a whole lot of factors that impact on whether in fact crime is reported in the first place. I'm getting some very interesting looks from Mr Sabin over there, but they are official crime statistics are very easily manipulated, and in fact if we look at them over time, which is often where we will use crime statistics, we'll look at them over time, and actually societal norms around what's reported often changes. So if you look at official crime statistics for domestic violence, for example, the reporting of domestic violence now is more common than it used to be. A lot of domestic violence previously went unreported, but there are a whole lot of reasons why a lot of the domestic violence that still takes place today still goes unreported. So crime statistics, the official crime statistics, can often be incredibly misleading, and I think we need to be a little cautious. What we need to be a little cautious, I do know quite a lot about it actually, and we need... Yeah, no, that's right. People can't report. Yeah, absolutely. But that simply reinforces the point that the official crime statistics can be misleading, and we need to be very careful about placing a lot of emphasis on official crime statistics when we're making decisions. Now, I do want to, however, stress, compliment the government for this piece of legislation, actually, because this is the sort of legislation which the National Party would have likely railed against when they were in opposition. In fact, they did rail against many of the very measures that are in this bill. They were vehemently opposed to when they were last in opposition, and now I'm pleased to see that they have seen the light, and in fact they are now willing to make decisions in this area based on what actually works. Because if we want to get serious about reducing recidivism, reducing reoffending, we do actually need to look at the evidence of what works rather than looking at what's going to be popular, because those two things are quite often very different. No government and no opposition ever lost votes or either won votes by promising to be soft on crime, and no government or opposition ever lost votes by promising to be, through the reverse. So it's very clear that there is definitely a public appetite for governments and for political parties and for political parties to be hard on crime. There's a clear public appetite for that. But actually, things like many of the measures contained in this legislation actually effective on crime. It's quite right. Actually, we do. Well, actually, Mike Sabin makes a very good point. It's about being effective on crime, but Andrew Little also makes an even better point. Telling cops to underreport crime does not actually make us more effective on crime at all. And unfortunately, there's enough of that going on at the moment. There's enough of that going on at the moment where crimes are going unreported and they're not being recorded in the official crime statistics. That doesn't mean that they're not happening. It just means that they're not being adequately reported, and I think that's fundamentally wrong. And I am actually looking forward to Mike Sabin's call on this bill. We've still got plenty of time. There's still plenty of time, and he has a lot to say. On this bill, and I think it would be a real shame if the National Party were not to allow somebody like Mike Sabin, who clearly has an ex-policeman, clearly has a lot of experience in this. I think it would be very disappointing if the national government weren't to allow somebody who knows something about this to actually speak on this. I'm happy to give up the rest of my time. If he would like to speak on the bill, I'm happy to give up the rest of my time.
about sending us some bullet points.
He does. He clearly doesn't want to. He doesn't actually want to say anything on this legislation, even though I offered him the remainder of my speaking time. Clearly doesn't want to say anything on this. Clearly the National Party have told him to keep his head down and stay quiet. I think that's rather unfortunate. But overall, I said that this was going to be a brief contribution, and I intend for it to be a brief contribution because I know that my colleague Louisa Wall wants to say something before we do run out of time in this debate. Overall, I think that these are welcome measures. I look forward to seeing them progressing through the House.
Louisa Wall.
Kia ora, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much for this opportunity to contribute in this